Hello and welcome to this RTS event. I'm Alison Hunt, script editor on Coronation Street, and this is the hole punch that Stephen Reed used to kill Teddy. Not quite so hard as you'd think. Why have I got it today? Well, I have it because today we are talking about props. It's a wonderful world that brings everything we see on screen, drama, reality, entertainment, truly to life. From elaborate set pieces to tiny but significant objects, props play a critical role in storytelling across all genres of television. Now, we've assembled a world-class panel to delve deep into the world of props, help us understand who sources them, how they're made, and the surprising ways they can shape a scene or even drive a narrative. During the discussion, we'll hear how our panel got into the business of props and design and how they built their careers. And hopefully, we'll get some on-set secrets and insider knowledge on where to pick up a bargain or two. So let's meet the panel. We've asked them all to introduce themselves, tell us what they do, and show us one of their props. So first up, Bobby, hello.
Hello, I'm Bobby Warans, and I'm a prop buyer of many, many long years. And I bought today the blankety blank checkbook.
I love that. That is my childhood. My childhood. It's amazing.
I could I couldn't find the pen, unfortunately. It's in a box. I used to do blanket. Well, I specialize in light entertainment shows because when I was at the BBC, none of the other prop buyers wanted to do them. So I sort of made a nice little niche for myself, and it was and I've loved doing it ever since. So here I am, still going strong.
I love it. Thank you. Catherine, thank you for being with us today. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. I'm Catherine Land, and I mainly work in light entertainment and reality shows. And I haven't got a prop because I just couldn't. I've made so many ridiculous things that I never keep anything. But I just thought I'd show everyone the carnage that is my office with like what I have generally hanging about, like here to choose
Right.
stuff like all the time. Handy to have these things, and also just some gaffer tape. Like, if you can't
Why
fix
not?
something, just use gaffer tape. So yeah, that's not basically that's what my props are. Just general random stuff
I love it.
hanging
It gives
about.
us, gives us a good idea like about what your life is like and what to expect. Bit of a treasure trove, your office. I like it. Okay, Derek, thank you for being with us today.
Hello, my name's Derek Brown. I'm a production designer, and the prop I have is behind me, and I'm going to reach over and get it because it's on my desk. And when I had a conversation the other day with Patrick, he asked me about it, and it's not something that I worked on because I'm not that old. It's the prop from Spartacus, the film, Charlton Heston film, 1960. And I got it because I was working in Italy, and I went to see a guy in Rome, and he had an incredible warehouse of props. It wasn't really a prop house. It was more like a sort of step to his yard, but he had worked in films, and he just had an incredible array of stuff. And I picked this dagger up, and I'd actually done quite a lot of business with this guy. And he said, "Do you want to have it?" And I said, "Really?" And he gave me it, and I've kept it ever since, about 25 years ago. And it was made by the prop department. It's completely fake, but it's just a lovely thing, and it's a great piece of history.
That's incredible. A talking piece when people come around to your house or office, I'm guessing.
It's quite heavy, actually. So it is sort of, but
What's it made out of?
I think it's cast in a sort of cheap metal, but it's not. It's certainly not a dagger. It doesn't come apart, and it's got a nice sort of bit of leather around it.
It's very impressive.
I
Thank
don't
you.
think it was actually Charlton Heston's, but it's from the film. Probably an extras prop.
Still very impressive. Thank you. And finally, hello, Peter.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself for us? And do you have a prop?
Sure. I'm Peter Gordon. I'm a designer. I haven't brought a prop with me, but we do have some pictures of relevant props. So the past 20 years ago, my team and I constructed an airliner and recreated an air crash in West London. Lots of fire, smoke, and drama. And this year, we built another aircraft and put celebrities in it and lured it into a very deep lake in Morocco. I'm not going to be able to show you those, but it's been an interesting journey in between those two moments. Background is really varied. I've done started in exhibitions. I've done dramas, kids shows, and more than my fair share of Big Brother.
Is there such a thing as more than your share of Big Brother? An amazing program. Okay, listen, it's great to have you all here today. I'm really excited to be talking to you. So many things we want to talk about. So let's get cracking. I guess what would be a good place to start would be talking about how you use props in your work and design day to day, because I think maybe some people who are watching are like, kind of, you know, what is a prop and how important are they for your production? So if we talk about maybe what you're working on at the moment and how you use props and how they're relevant to that. So Bobby and Lando, you're doing Strictly right now. What are you both up to?
Well, it's movie week this week, so
Movie week.
we've been bring away with lovely Caroline. It's all last minute, of course. So yes, we've got a nice Aston Martin car, I can tell you, this week. So guess what dance they're going to do? But it's really nice. You know, it's a great show, and also because it's all last minute, it gets all your lovely juices going. So you know, I normally get my list on a Tuesday, and off I go around the various prop houses, which are mostly in northwest London.
So
I bet
you
you're
get,
getting your list really, Bobby.
I was going to say, so you get it on, you get like a brief on the Tuesday. So how am I thinking you literally have days then to get things
Well,
organized?
obviously Caroline and Kath get their briefs. Perhaps might be for the week before, but obviously then it's up to the various choreographers to sort of almost dictate what they want. Like this week, we've got a bicycle, and of course they want it on a kickstand, but they want it on the left. But of course, you can't do that because the kickstand would then interfere with the chain. So Caroline's invented something. Anyway, the bike's gone to rehearsals because they were faffing around like mad yesterday. So we thought, send the blimmin' bike to rehearsals and they can get on with it. So that's an ongoing saga.
Yeah, it does have a fast turnaround, I'd say that, but it still keeps coming. The requests are still coming for this week. We're in tomorrow.
Yeah. So
Really? Wow. And I remember like something that I read about Minecraft bees, because obviously from Strictly you get the glitz and the glamour and, you know, the sets that we all see, but then like on Movie Week you have these crazy days where you turn on your TV and you don't know what you're gonna see. So what other things have you sort of been working on recently?
What have we well, so this week, so coming up on the show, there will be a Minecraft special, which is fun. And we made loads of crazy heads for all the dancers to wear. You would have thought they would have fallen into costume, but because it was a bit more special, we had to make loads of square heads for everybody. So there's people being sheep and llamas, but they've all got square heads. Yeah, and we did have some square bees. But yeah, it's just loads of fun movie week, really. I love it. We get to do lots of different things. You know, sort of really beautiful scenes, and then also just some cool, you know, whatever film they've chosen. We're going on 16, going on 17. Then we've also got Minecraft and like I don't know, James Bond or whatever. But yeah, it's fun.
How do you two both work together then? Kind of what's the working relationship between yourself, Catherine, and Bobby?
So the dance team come to me, and then I have lovely Caroline, who's also my assistant, and then her and Bobby get all the lists and sort it all out, and it's so nice.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Peter, what production are you working on at the moment?
We've got a few, and I'm afraid they're not as technicolor as Catherine and Bobby's, but we're working on a new court show for Channel 4. They're all in the design phase, and also we're starting to budget and prepare for some returning series next year. I can't talk about what we did earlier this year because it's still under embargo, unfortunately. So at the moment, we're very much in design world. Creating, for example, creating a courtroom. It's really propping an existing historical courtroom in Bristol. So we're doing, Bobby, you'll know the trip to Scene Dock.
oh god, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a question. It is a reality format. Like practically everything we're working on at the moment, one way or another, it always involves the public interacting with sometimes a real world situation. In this case, it's authentic, real court cases, so it's not Judge Judy. I need to be careful what I say here, but it kind of is, and it's really complex in terms of how to shoot it, because we don't want to see cameras. We did a therapy-based show for BBC One at the start of the year, and it's always the big kind of dream of the reality producers to create a world that is completely in a bubble. You can't see cameras. So those are our challenges at the moment.
I never thought about that, actually. I watch a lot of television, and I do sometimes think, where are the cameras? But it never even occurred to me that you guys have to design sets in a way that still look realistic and lifelike,
Yeah.
and have however many cameras that can't be seen. That sounds like an absolute challenge at the best of times.
I think we all know, I mean, like Bobby does the lovely buying for all of our gorgeous stuff, but all the rest of us know we spend most of our lives hiding cameras on all the rest of the shows we do.
Hiding lights as well.
Yes, and hiding lights. 'Cause
Yeah.
you want to get every reaction, but if it's reality, then you have to film them from various different places, but no one wants to see a camera anywhere. So if it looks so
Yeah. The word is make it, when somebody says make it immersive, you're in for a rodeo.
yeah. And there's often loads of mirrors up. If you ever see a mirror, you know there's a camera behind.
Yeah.
A lot of our work is actually doing stuff that you don't really see, and that people go, what did you do there? And you go, well, actually, that's a great compliment, because
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
made you believe that we weren't there, that it's all real, that there's no intervention at all. And I think that is
That's
a
so true.
big compliment, and that people watching just go, oh, we completely believe it. They buy into it, and I think for me that's ultimately a
Well,
great.
they think it's a location and not, they go, oh, yeah, that was just on location. No, we built all that.
That's
Or
really
it was on location, but there was
building. And you're like, no,
cameras
no, no.
But it's opposite end of the spectrum, because what Catherine and Bobby have just been talking about is totally the opposite. It's a total make-believe world.
Yeah, true. It's nice to flip it around sometimes.
And Derek, so you were just talking about hiding cameras and making locations look realistic, and I know that you're responsible for the look of The Inheritance, which is showing at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about the brief you were given there? Because I've watched bits of it, and it's an absolutely gorgeous location and such a stunning set.
Thank you. Well, I think first of all, my brief was, can you make it look as not like Traitors, as unlike Traitors as possible? Basically, same production company and very similar concept. So that was quite interesting. So Traitors obviously dark, Scottish, wet, stone, Gothic, fire, and we wanted something that was the opposite: sunny, summery, colorful. And initially we didn't know who the person was, who the deceased was. As you probably know, it turned out to be Elizabeth Hurley, but we didn't know that. We didn't even know it was going to be a man or a woman, and it was very late casting. So we kind of slipped down the road that it was probably going to be a woman. Or a very flamboyant man. So people were mentioned like Elton John. I'm not sure he would ever have done it, but that kind of that type of person. So one of my main approaches was that the country house was very masculine, as country houses generally are, because the men sort of ruled it in dark wood libraries, kind of masculine rooms. So the first thing was to try and feminize that space, but not in kind of obvious or patronizing ways, but the use of color, fabrics, handmade wallpapers. I approached a company called Decorator, who make hand painted wallpapers, and they have a lot of stock panels that they lent us that we could put up and take down. The other thing about this location is we weren't allowed to touch anything really. We weren't allowed to obviously drill holes, hang things, paint. So it's quite limited like that. So everything had to be freestanding or brought in, and furnishings. And and stuff like that. And one of the main things with Elizabeth Hurley, she's obviously quite a sort of camp, flamboyant character. So, and my thought was, well, her family were obviously very wealthy historically, and in the 1930s they would have had money. So they would have bought maybe original Art Deco furniture. So we managed to find some really great original pieces with like leopard skin upholstery and sort of velvets and things like that. And we brought that into the house to give it a kind of lushness and a richness, but also kind of still believable. It was always part of a story. We weren't just sort of window dressing. It was kind of creating a story around his character. For example, we did research, and she has dogs, and we had really interesting little dog baskets, and she has birds, and she has this collections of stuff. And famously, she was a fashion model, so we had lots of stuff to represent that, and gifts from fashion designers, and just trying to build up a picture visually of that person. And hopefully we achieved that in the look of it.
I would definitely say
Floristry as well, Derek, I have to say, because
Thank you.
you gave us a tip on. We just did Vanderpump Villas, a classy act. As in Lisa Vanderpump. She's a character. Bobby, you might know her. But yeah, you your art director recommended a florist. She's so amazing, and the flowers they provide
Tamsin.
gorgeous.
Okay, actually, I forgot to mention that one of the things that I really wanted to do right from the beginning was to have incredible flowers. And she's done really great films and lots of work for Tim Walker, the fashion photographer. And she came along and she really did the most incredible floristry. So we wanted it to be like, not like a hotel, but like a house that someone had picked flowers in the garden. And we wanted to bring a real softness and a femininity in with the flowers. And I really think that Tamsin did that. She's absolutely brilliant. And that's just another thing that you can do with props. And it's kind of great to hand it over to someone like that and let them take it on and see how they sort of run with the challenge. And I totally believe she did. And everyone who walked into the set was like, wow, I've never seen so many flowers. And it didn't look like a wedding. That was the other thing. We don't want it to look like a wedding. So there were lots of little things that she did that sort of basically not using white flowers and not cream, but sort of colours and having them a bit sort of haphazard and sort of home done was quite interesting.
I think the level of like what I'm getting is the level of details that you guys have to go into, like the way your brains must work and like how you really have to delve into what you're trying to portray. I think for people who are sat watching it, we just sit and think that looks great. From The Inheritance, when I've watched it, I have such a strong idea of who Elizabeth Hurley's character is, and I think you must get this a lot. I just take it for granted. I don't sit and think that you guys have had to sort of curate how I feel about somebody and what I perceive. With something like The Inheritance and maybe other shows that you're working on, maybe it was the same with The Frontier, I'm not sure. I'm guessing you get given a brief and you get given a budget. Is there any leeway for you? Because Derek, you were talking about like handmade wallpaper. Do you ever go back and say, oh, you're going to have to give me a bit of a higher budget if you want me to portray this woman of huge amounts of wealth, or you want me to, you know, make it accurate? Because obviously the authenticity, the importance of making sure that it doesn't look fake and that people aren't distracted from that show by thinking, because I know that sometimes you'll be looking and you're distracted from the story or the dialogue because you're like, what's going on in the background, or what's that TV doing in a set that's supposed to be XYZ? So are you able to have a bit of control and say, if you want me to do this right and you want me to make sure this portrays what you want, then you're going to have to give me a bit more money?
Well, I think on Inheritance we were quite lucky. We did have, but as most of us will know, we don't always have great budgets, and we don't, you know, and it is a struggle. But on the Inheritance, I was very much like, we can't have high street products in that house. I mean, we have to have original antiques. We have to have a certain level of stuff to make it believable. So we did have quite a good budget, but also to go back to the hand painted wallpapers. I managed to get a loan on something like that. And we can do that as well, because it sort of works both ways. I mean, people get a bit of exposure, and we get a bit of not a freebie, but we get the loan of things, so we don't necessarily have to pay huge amounts. I mean, we're not buying it, and we're not sort of, it's going back. So it's we can do that. And something like the hand painted wallpapers, we would never have been able to afford them.
Really interesting, Derek, the wallpaper. So every year since 2015, I've worked on history shows. So we've had to recreate interiors, and quite often the wallpaper, there are issues with sometimes with compliance and clearance, or sometimes just finding the right patterns. And with the Back in Time series that we did for Wall to Wall for BBC Two, with a quite brilliant now art director, Hannah Newcomb, who created a myriad backgrounds for the iconic calendar, which is swept off as the eras go past. And we wound up actually using her patterns. So it's an example of this thing you're talking about you have to be very precious with the wallpapers and wall finishes and so on. But Hannah's brilliant designs also gave us a route into reinvigorating the palette of available, because you would have to get these printed by a wallpaper maker, whose name I can't remember. But we would quite often actually just commission the wallpaper so it gives us the right scale. Because in a reality, Catherine, as you know, dressing a reality set, it's so much is about the pattern in the background. And you'll have had this with your camera hides in Inheritance, Derek, is you have to have a really rich background. And if you're on limited funds, and as I say, sometimes, you can't always rely on using Osborne and Little wallpaper. So
Patterns are often
sometimes,
too small, isn't it, as well?
yeah, the
So
repeats
you
will
get the pattern,
strobe.
like, that's too small, we need it bigger.
But it is interesting. Hannah was relatively junior at that stage, and I think for this audience, it's really interesting that she had such a big part in the final look of the show.
Yeah, graphic designers do so much as well for
Really, really important. Yeah,
I mean, when I did Rise and Fall, like so much artwork everywhere, and
yeah,
just like we had a brilliant graphic designer. I'm going to name it Emma Vince. She just
yeah,
all of our artwork for us, and anything, and the amount of different the scope they have as well. It's like, can you do a tapestry for us? And we just did the
yeah,
pillars. Can you do some cool graphics, like like behind me or whatever, or some artwork? They just run anything off, and it features so heavily. You're
yeah.
designing something, you go, yeah, we'll put a picture here, but you don't realize that picture's going to be in every shot, as in,
Clearance, artwork clearance is a massive issue.
yeah, big deal. Sometimes you're
We,
allowed,
we-
sometimes
we
you
were very
Yeah,
lucky in Inheritance, because there were hundreds of paintings in this location. And because they used the location for the crown, they used it as Highgrove. Netflix had
yeah,
cleared all the paintings, I think about 200, bar 6, because they were of the family, and they were quite new. So we didn't have clearance issues with that. So we could basically replace the 6 paintings. But one of the things I did want to do, I wanted to have lots of photographs of family and pretend family, and so it didn't feel like a hotel. So it felt like someone's home. So it was supposedly Elizabeth Hurley's relatives, and so we had to have cleared photographs for that. But we kind of went round, sent an email around all the production, the crew, and asked people if they would lend photographs of the nan or the whoever, or various family people, or their dogs or whatever. So we had real pictures, but they would sign the form and they'd be cleared, and then we would just get them scanned and then
holiday snaps.
and put exactly that, and put them into frames and things we'd tuck into, on the mantelpiece behind the clock. So we get lots of close-ups of just little, snaps and invitations to things, and the kind of paraphernalia that Elizabeth Hurley might have on her mantelpiece. So
well, Bobby, on Strictly, whenever we have a photograph, we have to it's always one of the crew or something.
Yes.
Yeah. It's actually, Catherine, when you do the graphics, I mean, how many times is your name featured in a book?
I know, yeah.
Looks
How
fine.
what did you put in the yeah, oh, you're in this.
Yeah. It's really embarrassing because I did some kids shows in the 90s, which is like dates me horrendously. But I was showing the some of the team I'm working with at the moment. I was showing them. It's actually a bit embarrassing. I showed them some of the graphics that I did myself in Photoshop. They
Yeah.
were so crap. The sophistication and the capabilities of the teams we have in graphics and telly and the movies now is I mean absolutely incredible. You know, they're
Yeah.
really top flight.
It's
I was
better
And
going
than
to say sort of technologies that really, you know, change things,
yeah.
particularly in the last few years, like, you know, how much is that changing the job that you all do?
Things like MacBook Pros, and people, graphic designers, can just be on set and they can just do stuff, and then
yeah.
it can be printed there. And it used to be that you'd have to go off to Data Repro, and you know, before the internet, you actually have to go there, and they'd say, well, we can do it for you next week, or if you pay a bit more, you might get it.
Interesting, Derek. There was Holly, Hannah was actually working on the Inheritance doing the tasks.
Yes, I know.
You
Yeah.
may have met her. So one of her colleagues did this is a kind of accidental one of these things that happens in these productions. It's actual content. So Holly has done quite a few graphics with me amongst other things, but she created maps to help the gameplay stories evolve. But then the maps got more and more involved, and like you said, Derek, it all comes down to an A3 printer, an A3 inkjet office printer. We've all been there.
Yep.
So Holly's creating these maps, and because she was working with me on
They're often more often than not, aren't we though?
oh Christ, actually, there's my yeah, I
Yeah.
told you my office is a dump. There's my big boy printer right there.
We've always got the A3 printer on the go the last minute.
So that one has done we did all the graphics for back in time for the shop. It's a massive amount of graphics with two of those machines working day and night. But yeah, Holly did the maps to explain the tasks and the challenges, and it was originally just a prop. It was like that thing. It's just something to explain to the contributors where to go. They've now found their way into the final edit, and nobody, the exec producers, of course, in their wisdom, had no clue who was turning out these incredible maps. And Holly's maps are first rate. I mean, they're dead good. So yeah, what a surprise when the producers get in touch with her when they're in the edit, trying to figure out how to stitch together a task, because sometimes the mechanic of the task might not work very well. And well, there's the maps. It's straight into the edit. It's the same when we did Big Brother recently. We had to do these loads of challenges. We had to give them all our Catherine, we gave them all our SketchUps, and then actually built them into a AI augmented kind of pre-title sequence.
Yeah.
But interesting. Yeah.
It's just ever evolving then, isn't it, really? Like the rate that technology is moving, it's just you guys, I guess, just have to adapt and use it to benefit you wherever you can.
I used to love doing, I mean, I started as an illustrator.
I know.
And I used to love doing my own graphics. I gladly sit there all day, but the technology has now gone, and I'm like, oh, I might just give them a ring.
These guys who do graphics now
are whizzes now.
Shit hot.
More young people being whizzes.
It's a without wanting to be patronizing, I think it's a good place to start nowadays, because I felt like I used to do a lot of scale models for designers, with big theatre and events and so on, and operas, and actually that's gone. I mean, I would still like to design with the model, but so many. We used to do really beautiful presentation models, which they're not happening anymore.
No, isn't it?
You know, but it used to be a really good route, because you know, do you remember?
Model making or drafting was a route.
Yeah.
I'd say model making, Derek.
Yeah.
Film used to get the drafting. You had to go in and learn how to do basically drafting, architectural drawing before CAD.
Yeah.
I
did the Kerry Access Snow class at Pinewood. It's going back some years now. taught me how to draft.
It would be good to sort of hear, like, we're talking about getting into the industry and like how you all started. I would love to hear more about how you all started and how your journey progressed. Bobby, can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up doing what you do?
Well, I went to Kingston College and studied interior design, and then I thought I wrote off to shows you how old I am. I wrote off to the BBC, and I went for an interview at Broadcasting House, which went very well. And then the lady said to me, "Do you want to work in television or radio?" And I thought, well, I think I'll work in television because it's not so far on the tube.
And you
And
just do interior design, so no one can see anything on radio.
That's
anyway, I started at the BBC. I went in as a clerk, and then they used to have an in-house magazine called Ariel, and they'd put all the job vacancies at the back.
yeah.
And they used to just sort of, 6 months. Anyway, I saw this job for a prop bar. I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. So I applied for it, and I got a 6-month attachment, and then I was doing a thing called the Calm Fourth Practice with a lovely designer called Keith Cheetham, and I was assigned to another prop buyer who was more experienced, and I was learning my trade as I went along. And then all of a sudden, this prop buyer died very suddenly, and so the prop master said to Keith Cheetham, "Do you want another prop bar, or are you happy with Bobby?" And he said, "I'm very happy with Bobby." And really, Keith Cheetham got me that when the jobs came up, he got me the job. So.
You
So
jumped in his grave as quick as you could.
That's the inheritance.
I'll have it.
I almost danced on it. Oh, that's a wicked thing.
I love that. It's just like it's opportunities that come your way, and I think what I've learned through my career as well, and talking to people coming up, is kind of just say yes, even if it terrifies you and you're thinking, "Oh, am I ready?" Sort of say yes. Catherine, what about your journey? You had a bit of a different journey into TV, didn't you?
Well, I got picked up for my illustration degree just because I was, did some nice artwork, and by this lovely lady called Jo Kiddingley, who made Big Cook, Little Cook, who are, our audience may know have watched.
I used to love watching that with my kids. It was great.
I did I started off doing pitches for her, like just pitch documents. Then she said, "Oh, I've got a job. Do you want to work on it? Do you want to do the makes which is basically like Blue Peter makes, basically. Here's one I made earlier." So I started just doing that, and had fun making melons, smiles and things like that. And then I went into CBBC, and actually worked on Blue Peter and did Here's One I Made Earlier, but also basically I was the art director on that, so everything else of that involved. Carried on in CBBC, then got picked up by and started working for Dominic Tolfs and Patrick Doherty and Peter Gordon, highly respected designers that were
Very highly respected designers.
Light entertainment, basically. So I used to work on X Factor, BGT, a lot of live shows. Dick and Dom in the Bungalow, I started on doing all of the crazy things on Dick and Dom in the Bungalow. I used to operate the portraits and did the diddies. Everything had to be tiny, and Dick and Dom was hilarious. I love Dick and Dom. It was so good. It was just absolute carnage on Saturday mornings. You used to get 6 million viewers. Watching everyone. And then at the end, they had to throw all the carpet away every week. What a waste, because it's all still covered in custard. And then I moved into light entertainment after that. I stood on live shows, always on live. And then of late, live shows obviously died down a bit. So I've sort of sashayed into reality now, as well as still carrying on Strictly with Bobby, which I love because it means I get to do a bit of both. And you have a varied, nice. And I've also, I've worked with Peter before on Sewing Bee, in which I had a lovely time.
It's always a pleasure.
It was, it's been really fun, like my career, and I wouldn't say it's not getting less fun, but I'm getting more mature.
You're slowing down a bit. You've done a lot.
Not throwing custard anymore or operating a portrait on live Saturday telly. I'm now just designing like quite as Strictly as my sort of lovely. I love Strictly just because I get to design sort of small vignettes of scenes and lots of different varied things. And then other times of the year I'm doing like a big reality which takes over your life and you become all consumed. So I like it's nice that I still get to do both. But a
lot of variation. Derek, I mean, I know that you've got a history in fine art. and then you've also found yourself doing props for music videos. So it sounds like you've had an interesting journey so far.
Yeah, I was at art school, and when I was at art school, I worked in the theatre. I was very interested in theatre, scenic, set design, and also as a part-time job, I needed money. And while I was at the theatre, there was people who went off, and it was in the 80s, and they said, "Oh, we're going to work on this pop video," and I can't really remember who it was. It wasn't someone who ever became anyone, but we all went off and had this mad time in a warehouse down in the docks making this pop video. And it was in the beginning of MTV, so it was all kind of new world. And that kind of went from one to the other. And I ended up working with some quite big music video directors like Godley and Cream. And we had people like Kate Bush and Peter Gabriel and Sting, and this is in the 80s. So they had big budgets. It was a really, really great time. And basically, everyone learned on the hoof. We all learned as we went along. It's kind of, it's just a sort of mad experimental world. It was really great. And record companies would have quite big budgets. And to a point when they realized they didn't actually have to spend that amount of money. But we had a sort of, we had a good time, and lots of filmmakers would come and make music videos because it was a great place to sort of experiment. So that was kind of up until the 90s, and I think they still make music videos, but it's not something I really would want to be involved now, because we used to spend 24-hour shoots and things, and spend the nights filming and sort of terrible warehouses in the docks. So that was my introduction into art direction, really. And then I went in. The first time I worked in TV was with Jim Henson and Creature Shop, and I did a series called Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Watch that, Derek.
It was Jim Henson's Animal Show with Jake and Stinky, and then something called Mopper Top Shop. It was a kids thing. And I loved that. It was really great. And that was kind of TV. And then I went to work at Spitting Image, because that was, again, puppets. And that was another really interesting time, because it was a hugely popular program.
It's amazing. I think what I'm getting from everyone at the moment, like from Catherine, what you've been saying, and Derek, is like, more than any other job, I think maybe in TV, is like the array of different genres you can work across. Peter, one of your first jobs was as a games designer on You Bet, is that right, in the 90s?
No, my first job was in a warehouse in West London,
Oh, was it?
What were you doing in a warehouse?
moving clothes for Next. I'm desperately trying to get a job as a designer and failing miserably, because I studied product design, which is the most boring job you can imagine. I spent all my time getting drunk with the fine arts students and having a good time. This was in the early 80s, so I'm really pretty old. So I got a job eventually making scale models for a massive agency called Imagination in the West End. Halcyon days in the 1980s. So while you were in warehouses, Derek, I was drinking champagne.
I remember you were
You're
in
probably drinking champagne.
Store Street, wasn't it? Off Tottenham Court Road.
No, I was back when I was at both places. I was at the original Covent Garden, and then we moved to Store Street.
Store Street,
So
yeah, I remember the building, the rooftop. We used to go to parties there. I did go to parties there, actually.
Oh, well, there we go. We probably bumped into each other. But the thing about it was that that was the what was that? Late 80s, early 90s, and things were economically tricky. I was getting married and so on. But I met this guy called Simon Jago, who was brought in as a TV designer. He didn't like the corporate atmosphere very much. And Simon was and is an incredibly clever man, brilliant designer, but his main forte was news sets. So while I was downstairs making scale models, in the evening, I was making scale models for Simon's pitches for Channel 4 News, News at 10, GMTV. And we did it no win, no fee basis. So it circles back to what I was saying earlier about where to start. So I started by sucking up to Simon. I didn't charge him. If he won the job, I got a few quid. But what it did was it gave me experience. I then went to that course that they used to do at Chelsea, learning how to draft. That was a total waste of time. Instead, I sucked up to Simon so much, he got me a job as an art director, and you bet. Big risk for Simon, big risk, because I was just a gobshite from Belfast who wanted to do something different. And I'd actually seen the job as production designer when I was 17, which was in 1981. No, yeah, that's right. And I thought that's unattainable. So they told me I should be an engineer. Growing up in conservative Ulster in the 70s and 80s, doing something as ridiculous as film design was just off the menu. But anyway, we got to where we got to. Simon Jago got me a job, LWT, doing games. You bet. First prop I designed was, well, I'm going to say two. One was this dude pulled a London bus into the studio. It was a studio-based prop. So we built this winch rig, and this guy had to pull a London bus into the set in under a minute. Of course, well, you know how it is. We re-geared the bike and gave him a load of coffee, and he did it quite comfortably. And the funniest one we did, we got an airship. This is a giant big blimp. You don't really see them anymore, but it was this ginormous aircraft. Didn't work properly in the wind. So we were supposed to pick ducks out of the water at Home Pier Point, which is a international rowing regatta course near Peterborough. Anyway, didn't work because wind was going the wrong direction. So instead, somebody had a bright idea of running out and getting coconuts and road cones, and we recreated the course picking coconuts up from an airship with a giant net in a nearby airfield. Absolutely ridiculous. That was with Matthew Kelly, the legendary Matthew Kelly, who was the nicest man, wonderful man to work with. Best parties ever. So that's how you start in TV, in my opinion.
They must have seen something in you. I think that's probably the case for everyone, isn't it? It's sort of people are saying, no, they took a chance, but obviously they see a passion in you in something. You're obviously really passionate about your job, all of you. And I do sometimes sit and think maybe like Bobby and Catherine, when you're in the throes of Strictly, or Peter, when you were doing Back to the Frontier. How much does it take over your life? I mean, were you working in the US, Peter, for that? And, Bobby and
That was
Catherine,
hilarious.
yeah,
Well,
are you having to relocate for a certain amount of time, or?
oh yeah.
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 So it's like a movie.
You don't have
I mean,
life. You don't have a life.
Really?
well, Frontier was in Alberta. And I'm going to try and somebody hold their hand up if I go on too much, because it was just when we arrived at immigration, we had to go through the process. And the first thing the guy said, he was First Nation, the guy spoke to us, immigration officer, lovely man. When he found out where we were going, he said, well, you've got the three North American apex predators right there. You've got cougars, you've got grizzlies, and you've got wolves. So, but it just felt like being in Scotland. It was so peaceful and beautiful and placid until one day, I wasn't able to walk very well at the time because I'd had a motorcycle crash a couple of months before going out on location. And I suddenly found myself left on my own without my bear spray, without the security team nearby. I'd been musing, sitting in one of these beautiful cabins, kind of looking at fabric or whatever I was doing. And then suddenly I was like in the middle of nowhere, and we'd seen some black bears hanging around, and I had to hobble my way back up to my transport. It's half a mile away across the field.
Derek, what about you when you're doing the inheritance? Do you kind of have to be up there on location for however long?
Well, not really. I mean, we were there all week, and then we would have in prep. We had 6 weeks prep, which is a long time on location. So we were there. We wouldn't work weekends, which was a real luxury. When they were shooting, it was complete opposite because they shot. I think the shoots were 18 hours a day. So we had an AM and a PM of everything: an AM art department, a PM art department, AM camera, PM camera. So we would have 2 shifts basically. So I wouldn't really be there all the time. I wouldn't need to be there all the time. So we were kind of covered. And it was only a 10-day shoot because they shot an episode a day. So the shoot was quite intense. It was probably a nightmare for a lot of people in production, but we kind of managed it in quite a good way, so it was fine. But that is quite rare. I'm sure everyone will agree that you can end up being, moving in with a bag into the art department and just staying there for a few weeks.
Yeah.
How about Catherine and Bobby, for you guys doing things like the live television, which is season on, season off? From what you said about when you get your briefs and how long you've got to turn that around, sort of, does your head ever switch off, or when you're on that, is it almost like 24/7? What do your working days kind of look like, and are you just ready for a nice long sleep when it's all over?
Well, me personally, I must admit, I do begrudge working on a Sunday now, because when I first started, all the shows I did were recorded at the weekend, so I was almost doing a 7-day week. So, but it was very nice, because in those days weekends were pure overtime, which is fantastic. But no, but now, I do. If I have to work on a Sunday, of course I will. But it is nice to have a nice day. I don't go near the computer on a Sunday, and I just switch off and watch a nice old film on Netflix or something.
Sundays are sacred to me as well, because basically from the age of like 25, I was on live Saturday shows of some description from like Dick and Dom onwards. So now Sunday's like the day when you fall down dead after the week of absolute carnage. And then you would have found the same Big Brother, wouldn't you, Peter? But you were on all the time, which is all the time. So that must have been so intense. But you just end up being your mates and your family are you work with, basically.
Yeah.
They'd hate me to say that. They're like, what about your mate? I'm like, yeah, we are.
But Catherine, I remember us in an abandoned ammunition shed in somewhere near Basingstoke.
That place. For Release the Hounds, that one.
Release the Hounds.
Yeah.
I have to say, Ali, that the team who do the props on any of these reality shows, and this is what, Catherine, this is what we're saying about Big Brother. I did Big Brother again recently, which was an experience. And they're present sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. Some people don't get along with the working hours terribly well in this era, but it is certainly a factor. You do tend to live on the job. I certainly wound up living in a particularly disreputable travel lodge in the North Circular for a period during that production.
I think it's important, isn't it, particularly when people are starting out in the career, that people are quite scared of failing. And we've all, we work in TV, we've all failed, and we all still have successful careers. So, I mean, do you all have a story of where things went wrong, just to kind of humanize us all and to give people hope? I think. Oh, Catherine, that was a great face. Go on. I spotted that. Go on.
No, it's just hideous. I was saying CBBC, and it was just I've got so many stories, also from friends as well, which are just yes. And I might actually tell one of like, I've got one where a set wouldn't get up 2 inches, and it was huge, and it was a big rotating thing. PG, you could have built it. Obviously Webster could have built it, but it couldn't. It was a big game. It just wouldn't get on the set because the set was raised up 2 inches.
Oh God.
And it just, honestly, it had like 10 men around it. It cost 20 grand, and it just couldn't get it on. We just went, and the producers went, sack it off. And I just went, oh my God, I'm sick of
Wow.
it. But also, there's more funny stories. Like, one of my friends was working on a game show. She had to provide loads of dead fish for a live show. I won't mention any names, but he was ginger and quite big in the media at the time. And it was his production company running the show. And she, at the end of the day, on a bright and sunny day, on a bank holiday, she said, Catherine, what would you have done with those fish in those barrels? And I was like, I don't know, maybe I've tipped them into the sea. She went, I did that. Brighton Beach closed for the whole bank holiday weekend.
Oh, that's
Wow.
brilliant.
And it's
That's
like, and you
brilliant.
you just laugh because she had, I don't know how I didn't get fired, but I didn't get fired. But it's just, you hear all sorts of stories like that because you're doing stuff that hasn't been done before. Like, no one's done it. There's no remit. Like,
Mm.
like when you're doing You Bet, Peter, there's no, and Bobby, all the stuff that you bought, there's no Bible for this because sometimes you're doing stuff that no one's done before. And you're just like,
Yeah.
I
so
mean,
you just think stuff happens sometimes.
and you just got to move on. Bobby, you're known as the superhuman sorcerer, I believe, which makes me believe that you've never done anything wrong. Because from what I've heard, you're just an absolute master at what you do. But
Well,
have you got
I-
anything?
I've had a few bloopers. I always remember when I was doing the two Ronnies, I'd read the script and it said Ronnie Barker brings on an alpine horn, and I just imagine, I don't know why, but I imagine it's one of those hats with the two horns either side. So this is on a Sunday. No, this is before computers and everything. So I bring out the hat, and Ronnie said, "What's that?" I said, "It's your alpine horn." He went, "No, no, no, Bob. I mean one of those the long alpine horns." So I'm thinking, where the bloody hell am I going to get? Because no computers. We had a Kelly's directory in those days, which was our Bible. Anyway, I always remember my office was on top of the PBX girls in Television Centre, and I remember ringing the girl who I got to know very well, and I said, Where do you think I get an alpine horn from?" Because they're so knowledgeable. She said, "Why don't you try the horn in the museum? I'll put you through." Anyway, so I got through, and they were open on a Sunday. So I'm saying to this man, "Hello, I'm Bob Warans, BBC Television on the two runs. You wouldn't have to have an alpine horn I could hire this afternoon." When I saw him, I kissed him. He said, "Yes, we've got 3."
Oh, amazing.
So
That kind of thing happens all
I
the
took
time.
myself off in a cab because I didn't know where it was. Anyway, they were so kind. They took me at my word, and I walked out there with an alpine horn. They didn't know who I was from Adam. Anyway, I got brownie points from Ronnie Barker, and I took it personally back on Monday, and I gave them a nice donation to the museum. But yes, it was one of those horrible moments. Do you think, "Oh bloody hell, where am I going to get that from?"
I love that. Peter, what about yourself?
Multiple.
Any
God,
particular corker?
I
Can't
can't think.
disclose them either.
Catherine, I might need your help. Did
I
anything?
know
What
of
did?
one. I know of one. Not a fail, but just a
What happened? What happened on Release the Hind?
a poor one poor
Oh
assistant
God, I
got
remember.
electrocuted.
That's right. Oh my God, that was
Peter just said, "Sit in
Gareth
this
Owen.
chair." Yeah, sit in this chair. And
Oh
then put your
Lord,
feet on this
yes.
metal plate, and it was supposed to give him a light electrical shock, which it did, I'm sure, but it did shock the guy. The poor guy.
Oh, it
Silent
didn't
for a
just
long
shock
time.
him. The problem is everybody responds differently to electric shocks. And this lovely producer wound up being connected to a high tension, like 20,000 volts. It was trying to keep it simple. People respond differently. Some people, I might walk up, I'm a bit stupid, so I can walk up and hold an electric current and actually not
I've been on
really
it.
feel it.
I was on it, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah, this
Right.
isn't great. Now, what we do in order to give somebody an electric shock, we don't give them electric shock. We use uprated TENS pads that are used by the fetish community. The things I'm talking about. So these give you like a TENS machine, but a lot more powerful. They really make you jump, and they're consistent. But holding an electric fence, and I'd been telling the producers from Release the Hind, do not use an electric fence. The day I was at a wedding, and I got a phone call saying it would nearly kill the producer. So they had this producer in his socks, standing on a wet floor, attached to electrodes. And the guy hadn't just had a bit of a shock. He'd been catapulted across the shed, and these were old concrete derelict military buildings. And because electric shocks have a funny effect, they can have a really emotional effect, a bit like the
Yeah.
thing they do,
The
ECT. So poor Gareth was in terrible, terrible form for about a month afterwards.
What I love is the fact that the phrase came out of your mouth for this job is, when we want to give somebody an electric shock, I just love the
Yeah.
fact that comes into
Yeah,
your
Comes up a
job
lot, to be
description.
fair.
always use an e-stim. Do not.
Yeah.
But we built a giant pinball race with like big heavy plant excavators from Liam Lynch friend of mine, Irish, not surprising. And so the lynch mob turn up with a 60-ton excavator. Oh, we had a Zorb ball, like went 200 yards. So we decided we weren't going to do that. We built it with smaller machines. Anyway, the point is, the big fail was test day. Chris Elliott and I, the health and safety advisor, and I took part in this race through an obstacle course in their yard, and we got trapped. The machine operators didn't know that we were trying to cut it off. We couldn't have radios on us because they had been thrown around inside the Zorb ball and knocked us out. And I thought actually at that moment I was going to die. It wound up actually, by the time we turned it down, we wound up with Jedward running the course in the entire Wembley arena. Without one of them hurt his ankle, I think, a wee bit, but pretty much without mishap. But on those big kinetic games, like, you know, on all these adventure shows, the pitfalls and risks are, I mean, like Survivor or SAS, they're massive,
Yeah.
you know.
All
Again,
adds to it,
haven't
doesn't
been
it?
labelled.
Safety is a big deal.
Just very quickly, it would be great just to get a little bit of advice for people looking to start their career in props and design. So if you could all maybe just give us a little word of wisdom and a little bit of advice, if we start with Bobby.
Well, there's a young girl upstairs from my office, and I got her a little bit of a job on Strictly. She did the work placement. Her name was Eva, and she's done, and she loves it, and she's so keen. And I've taken her around the prop hire houses. So, and I'm going to have her on the Royal Variety Show. But no, it's just like you can see when someone's really, really keen. I've had others when I was at television said that all they want to do is sit in the studio all day and gawp, and you just think, what's the point? So, but no, once you see some encouragement, it's fantastic.
Perfect. Peter, what advice would you give for someone looking to start?
Well, this has been really interesting recently. As I said, doing Big Brother was brilliant because there's one person who started doing Big Brother with me in 2003, first time he did it. Couldn't name check him. Kath and I were talking about him, a young man called Ben, well, then young man, Ben Norman. Now, Ben has, like I said, totally eclipsed me. He's the guy, regardless of what the credits say, Ben is the guy who recreated Squid Games. An incredible mind, just incredible. He started in 3D design. Ben's real forte, and the thing that I would say to anybody, and what started me with Simon Jago, is get a craft skill. Not just working on a computer, actually be able to make a contribution with your hands. And that way, if you fuck it up, it doesn't really matter. Nobody's shooting at us. But if you make a little prop that doesn't quite look right, it may be wrong. The designer may not like it. If the producers like it, it's a win. And some of those things that you do at the start of your career are so simple, like the coconut thing that we did on You Bet years and years and years ago. That opportunity, giving somebody who is an eager beaver that opportunity to do something outside of their comfort zone is invaluable. And you know, so many things in this era are driven by results, and sometimes you need to give people a bit of a leeway. And like I say, it's such an unknown. You know, we can come up with an idea, a brilliant thing that we think we've designed to the nth degree, and in the end, it can be resolved by somebody standing inside a box throwing balls at a person. It's, you know, that's, I see it. So in terms of starting off, sorry for the long and rambling diatribe, but basically it feels to me that you still need to have a tangible skill that is not necessarily, I mean, some people I know can, I don't know, play a musical instrument, something. I also used to use making scale models. I used to call it my version of driving a minicab because I wanted to do films. Like I used to go to the opera and stuff like that, believe it or not. I wanted to do movies and, you know, these worthy dramas. And it just was really, really hard at times. And I had this skill I could fall back on.
That's amazing. Catherine, what advice would you have for anybody watching who has listened to what you've all said today and is thinking this this is the job for me?
I would say I work with a lot of assistant art directors, and I would say the ones that stand out the most are the ones who realise they're lacking a skill and then go off and learn about it. So even as simple as driving, like it would be handy if you could drive. They like go off and go and pass their test, because lots of Londoners don't drive, but they go and pass their test. Or, oh, I don't know how to sew. Just spend a bit of time on a sewing machine so you can you can make some drapes for, or try model making if you can't use your hands, if you're used to using on the computer. Or the other way around, if you used to being a bit more crafty, as I was when I first started out with a glue gun in hand, I went and did the Terry Eklund Snow course at Pinewood Studios that taught me how to draft, and then a SketchUp course that taught me how to draw. But basically, so if you can't do something, don't just sit there and say, oh, I can't do that. Go and learn, and then you'll become more valuable to the person who's employing you. Like you go, oh God, they're good. They can do everything. They're a triple threat. Brilliant. Let's have them.
And it's like what Bobby was saying as well, isn't it? It's that eagerness. It's like they care enough. They care enough to want to do it, and they're showing that they're willing to go the extra step.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. And finally, Derek, words of wisdom, please.
Well, I would reiterate what Catherine said, and I'll say to anyone, get into an art department or onto production in the art department, and just try doing everything, because you don't really know until you've done it. You might not know you really, really love doing painting, scenic painting, or something like that, or model making, or visualization. You really don't know until you've done it on the ground, because there's nothing like doing it in a real workplace, on a real production, and getting the feedback, and just discovering, really.
It's brilliant. I want to thank you all so much for today. It's been an absolute joy. So many insights, I think, for anybody who was maybe wavering and didn't know what direction they were looking at, with regards to working in film and television, or for people who have always thought it's what they want to do. We've got some great advice out there on how people can follow their dreams and end up with glittering and very successful careers like all of you. So thank you very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.